Nobody talks about this. There are players who walked into a World Cup as gods and walked out as ghosts. And as we head into the 2026 World Cup, the biggest tournament ever staged, 48 nations, 3 countries hosting, 100 million people expected in stadiums across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's worth asking one question. Who is going to be next? Because history has shown us over and over again that the World Cup doesn't just crown legends, it destroys them. These are the players the World Cup completely broke. David Beckham, 1998. France. He was 23 years old and the most exciting young midfielder England had produced in a generation. The hair, the free kicks, the marriage to a Spice Girl. He was untouchable. Then came Argentina. Round of 16, England were level. And in the 47th minute, Beckham was fouled by Diego Simeone. Yes, that Simeone. And as he lay on the ground, he flicked his leg back. A nothing kick. A stupid, petulant, childish kick. Red card. England lost on penalties, and the entire nation turned on him. Newspapers printed dartboards with his face. Fans hung effigies of him outside pubs. A London restaurant put a Beckham voodoo doll in the window for people to stab. He needed a bodyguard to leave his house. One moment, one kick, and the most famous footballer in England became the most hated. It took him 5 years to rebuild that relationship with the English public. 5 years. Roberto Baggio, Italy. 1994, World Cup Final. Pasadena, California, during the Rose Bowl. 94,000 people watching. Baggio had carried Italy to that final almost single-handedly. He scored 5 goals in the knockout rounds. He was the best player on the planet. Italy versus Brazil. 0-0 after extra time. Penalties. Italy needed Baggio to score. He stepped up. He struck it. And he sent it sailing over the crossbar. The image of Roberto Baggio standing there, hands on hips, head bowed, ponytail hanging, the Brazilian players celebrating behind him. That image went around the world in seconds. It became one of the most reproduced sports photographs in history. He said years later, and this is the part that breaks you, he said that penalty still wakes him up at night. 30 years later, it still wakes him up at night. Andrés Escobar, Colombia, 1994. This one is different. This one is not about embarrassment or career decline. This one is about a man who paid with his life. Colombia arrived at that World Cup as one of the favorites. Pelé himself had tipped them to win it. They had a golden generation. And in their opening game against the United States, Escobar, trying to cut out a cross, turned the ball into his own net. Colombia were eliminated. 10 days after returning home to Medellin, Andrés Escobar was shot dead outside a nightclub. 12 bullets. The gunman reportedly shouted, "Own goal," with each shot. He was 27 years old. When we talk about the pressure of the World Cup in 2026, when we talk about what's at stake for players like Mbappé, Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, we should remember Andrés Escobar. We should remember that for some players in some countries, football is not just a game. Ronaldo, Brazil, 1998 World Cup Final, Paris, Brazil versus France. Ronaldo was not just the best player in the world, he was arguably the best player who had ever lived at that point. He had won the Ballon d'Or. He was 21 years old. Brazil were favorites. Then, hours before kickoff, something happened. To this day, nobody knows exactly what. Ronaldo had a seizure in his hotel room. His teammates found him convulsing on the floor, biting his tongue, unable to speak. He was rushed to hospital. His name was taken off the team sheet. Then, 90 minutes before kickoff, it was put back on. He played. He was a ghost. He barely touched the ball. France won 3-0. Zinedine Zidane scored twice with his head in the first half, and Brazil never recovered. What happened to Ronaldo in that hotel room was never fully explained. The official statement said it was stress-related. His teammates have given different accounts over the years. Nike, who had a massive commercial deal with Brazil, were accused of pressuring the team to play him. The greatest player on earth, in the biggest game of his life, and something broke inside him that nobody could see. He came back. He won the 2002 World Cup. He scored both goals in the final. He redeemed himself completely. But 1998 stays with you. Asamoah Gyan, Ghana, 2010, South Africa. The first World Cup ever held on African soil, and Ghana were 90 seconds away from becoming the first African nation to reach a World Cup semifinal. Quarterfinal. Uruguay. Extra time. 119 minutes played. Ghana win a penalty. Luis Suarez has just handled the ball on the line. A deliberate, blatant handball. He was sent off, and Gyan steps up. If he scores, Ghana are in the semifinal. A continent holds its breath. He hits the crossbar. Uruguay win on penalties. Gyan was devastated. He went silent for weeks. The criticism in Ghana was brutal. He changed his Twitter bio to Bible verses just to cope with the abuse. And here is the cruel twist. In 2026, Ghana could qualify again. A new generation. And somewhere, Asamoah Gyan, now retired, will be watching, knowing that one moment, kept an entire continent from history. And then there is Zinedine Zidane, France, 2006, Berlin, World Cup final, his last professional match as a footballer. Zidane had come out of international retirement to lead France to that final. He was 34 years old. He scored a penalty in the first half with a Panenka chip, the most arrogant, beautiful penalty you will ever see. France and Italy were level after extra time. Then, in the 110th minute, Zidane walked up to Italian defender Marco Materazzi and headbutted him in the chest. Red card. Last act of his career. Not a goal. Not a trophy. A headbutt. France lost on penalties. The greatest European player of his generation. One of the greatest players in the history of football. And his last moment in professional football was a headbutt in a World Cup final. He said Materazzi insulted his mother and his sister. Materazzi admitted it. And Zidane said he would rather die than apologize for what he did. That is who Zidane was. Brilliant, violent, beautiful, and completely combustible. As the 2026 World Cup approaches, with Kylian Mbappé now carrying the number 10 shirt for France, with the pressure of an entire nation on his shoulders after a difficult season at Real Madrid, the question is not whether he can handle the pressure. The question is whether anyone can. Beckham couldn't. Baggio couldn't. Ronaldo nearly didn't. Gyan didn't. Zidane exploded. The World Cup is the only stage in sport where the pressure is so absolute, so total, so completely unforgiving that it can take the best human beings who have ever played the game and reduce them to a single moment that follows them for the rest of their lives. 2026 is coming. 48 nations, 3 countries, millions of people. And somewhere in that tournament, a player who arrived as a god is going to walk out as a ghost. That is what the World Cup does. That is what the World Cup has always done. Subscribe. Because when it happens, we will be here to tell the story nobody else will tell.